It's time for a yarn haul. If you saw last week's vlog of our trip down to the Great Ocean Road here in Australia, you know that on the way back we stopped in Bendigo Woollen Mills, which is an Australian wool mill that has really quality natural fibers, and they're really affordable because they come in these 200-gram balls for the same price that you can often find 100-gram balls. And it feels really great because you're able to support a family-owned mill, and I think it's quite a large company now, but I really love to, while we are here in Australia, shop local when I can, especially with my fiber consumption. And as we were going to be traveling around Australia, it was my dream to make that a pit stop on one of our trips, if not a few. And I am so excited that I got to go to Bendigo Woollen Mills in person. I have shopped their yarns online and have used them a few times, but I really like their yarns. This is not a sponsored video. I paid for all of the yarn myself, but I want to share it with you because I am very excited and have a lot of exciting plans for this yarn. And because this is a yarn haul and I can't help myself, I also have some Knitpicks yarn to share with you at the end of this video that I have some really exciting plans for that have also jumped way up high in my queue. Some of my Make 9 plans have changed, but I also already have, I think, 5 of them on the go. So I'm doing really good with actually working through my Make 9, and I think that it has inspired me, and also I am okay with straying off of it if I find other inspirations. As you saw in the intro, their walls of yarn were so very beautiful, but what really got me excited and throwing everything in my cart was the back room. They have an entire back room of discounted yarns and fibers that they do not carry on their website. And as soon as I saw alpaca fibers, I started losing my mind. On their website, they usually carry 100% cotton yarns and 100% wool yarns, I think. They have other variations, but those are the ones I've really shopped from. And just about everything I have here is quite unique from that. These are all things that I don't think I could get in online, only in person. So I have no regrets with going a little crazy with my yarn shopping, even though we did talk about in my intentions for this year, trying to work through my yarn stash and plans that I have already on hand, but also when I do buy yarn, being intentional and buying enough of it for what I want to make with that yarn. I ran into a lot of yarn chicken issues last year from buying my yarn and then not really knowing what I was gonna make with it yet. So I'm doing a lot better with that this year, I think, but obviously going to Bendigo was a fever dream, but I think I still managed to do quite a good job. But without any further ado, let's dive into this yarn haul and talk about all of the beautiful things I grabbed. Let's start with the 10-ply worsted weight wool in this beautiful navy color. This is the only one I would have been able to order online. They had it marked down a bit in the back, so that was really exciting. This is the yarn I bought the most of, and it is because I am planning to make my husband a Lakes pullover by Ozetta in this yarn. And funnily enough, I've actually cast this one on. Do you want to see? Yeah, I think you want to see. So the Lakes pullover is a worsted weight saddle shoulder sweater, and I've never knit saddle shoulder. I actually have my eye on so many saddle shoulder projects that we will talk about later in this video from some of the yarns I have purchased recently, but just about everything I've added to my queue for this year is a saddle shoulder construction because I'm just obsessed with the look of it, even though this is my first time actually knitting it, and I'm excited to work on more of them. I have gotten started, as you can see, on this pullover. It looks like a whole lot of nothing and rolling right now, but I started with one of the saddle shoulders, and it basically is like knitting a long swatch. Here, I was just making a long rectangle, and then you pick up stitches from both sides of the saddle shoulders and then cast on stitches in between to make the back yoke, and then you do the same on the front to pick up stitches and make the neckline. And there are definitely a lot of short rows shapings going on in here. It's been quite interesting to learn this new construction. I'm having a lot of fun working on it. I think it is coming along beautifully, and I can't wait to talk about this more in the next podcast episode. But I wanted to show you because this yarn is already being in use, and I'm trying to just follow my knitting mojo. When we brought this home, I just couldn't wait to start the next project for my husband because I just finished his mill cardigan, which you saw on the podcast, and really wanted to have him a sweater by this winter that we will be going into. We're going into fall here in Australia soon, so I wanted to get that on the needles so that it can be ready by winter. This is the one I bought the most of. I got 5 balls of this. So this was the thing I spent the most money on there. And once we talked about sizing, he actually wanted it more tight fitting than I thought he would. So I could have gotten away with only 4 balls, I think, but that's okay. I will find something to use the other ball for, maybe an accessory or something. After I knit the saddle shoulders, I did block them to make sure I was meeting gauge because, like I said, this was basically my swatch, which was really cool to be able to turn it right into the project and just go from there. But it just blocked out so much softer. Like, this already feels very nice, but once it's blocked, it just drapes really nicely, and I can't wait to knit with all of this beautiful wool. But yeah, you're here for a yarn haul, and I'm sitting here talking about an entire work in progress. So let's get back on track and talk about more yarn I bought. So that is the yarn for my husband's sweater. Moving right on into the next wool. This one is an 8-ply wool in this beautiful green tone. It's such a nice olive with flecks of what look like yellow. Just there's a lot of depth and dimension to this color, and this is the only one I have absolutely no plan for, but I need anything in this color. Like, I just loved this. And I think it's funny because historically when I buy yarn, if I don't know what I want to make with it, I end up going with a neutral colorway because it's like, oh, you can make anything in a brown. Of course you can, but like, how many brown yarns do I need in my stash? So I really love that with this one, I'm going to be going color first and finding inspiration from the color for the pattern. Some things I have in mind for this are, of course, something saddle shoulder. I have my eye on either making another lace pullover, but for myself in this, I think it would be so nice to have this like lake green sweater. But another thing in my mind is the cardigan number 9. I have had my eye on that pattern for so long, but every yarn I almost use for it, I end up using for something else, and I just haven't decided like what I want it to be in. But I think that this would be a really good color for it. But as you know, I'm also going to be unraveling my moss cardigan and re-knitting that into a different cardigan. So once I figure out what I'm using that yarn for 100%, I will decide what I'm going to use this one for. What I have my eye on for those yarns is either the Field Day by Ozetta. I'm obsessed with her patterns right now, and as I'm knitting the Lakes pullover, I have to say her pattern writing is so concise and like very clear. She adds so many details. Like, she says, knit this many rows. You want it to be this length after you've knit that many rows. Then we'll also provide the stitch count at that point. So after you've knit the 30 rows, you know that it should be this length and have this many stitches on the needles. And as someone who is trying a new style of construction, that is so helpful, because if I was knitting that saddle shoulder and she just said knit X amount of rows, and I just have to hope that it's the right length after knitting those rows if I was on gauge. I think a lot of times we can think we're on gauge, but in actual knitting practice, like, things can get off gauge. How many times am I going to say that word in this video? But the clarity of her patterns just provide a lot of assurance in the knitting process. The tag on this says mixed fibers. and I asked her about it, and it was also with the rest of the wool section in that section. And I think the tweedy bits are potentially what makes it have different fibers mixed in, but I think it's primarily wool. I don't know what percent of it is other fibers. It might be mixed with some synthetic fibers. It feels very, very similar to, in my opinion, it feels very similar to their other 100% wool. So hopefully when it blocks out, it has that same texture and drape. I think it will. But I got 3 balls of this, which is 600 grams, and that is usually a sweater's quantity for me. So I'm really excited to turn this into something. I think this looks so good with my tone, my skin tone, my hair, and I can't wait to have something in these. The next sweater quantity I am very excited to share is the alpaca fiber. Look how fuzzy and beautiful. I hope you can see the halo that this has. This is an 8-ply, 50% wool, 50% alpaca fiber in this beautiful cream color, and I just fell in love with it the moment I saw it. My husband actually spotted this yarn before I did. I was not expecting them to have alpaca fiber, and I literally just snatched it and was throwing it in my bag. I'm like, this is mine. I'm taking you home with me. They had alpaca in a couple colors. I do have one other alpaca to show you, but this one I got a sweater's quantity of, and I'm picturing a textured cabled sweater. On my Instagram feed the morning I was going to Bendigo Woollen Mills, I saw Augustine's DK cable sweater. I will put it on the screen, and fell in love. Like, I really would love to knit that sweater. I've also been eyeing the Sibylla sweater by Cookie the Knitter. I'm probably pronouncing the name of that wrong, but I think it would look so beautiful in this yarn. However, I'm already working on my Belle and Sebastian in a fuzzy white yarn, so I don't know if I need to cable knit white sweaters. We'll just see where my inspiration goes with this, but I can't wait to knit with this alpaca fiber. My gosh, it is so beautiful. Like, I feel so lucky to have gotten to go in person to be able to discover these and bring them home with me. I think alpaca fiber just feels so luxurious, and also with that not being a local shop for me, it just feels so special to get to bring a special fiber home with me. This was the most expensive one per ball, but like I said, I bought more of the blue yarn, so that ended up being the most I spent on one. But these were $18 per ball, so obviously worth it, because this is 200 grams of an 8-ply yarn, and all up that is 54 Australian dollars for a sweater, which I think is worth the price tag, and that's only 33 US dollars, so definitely worth the price of a sweater, a alpaca wool sweater at that. So I think that's a really good deal, and I'm so excited about these yarns. The other alpaca I picked up is this beautiful maroon burgundy. Here is a close-up of the color. I am so in love with it. This one is another 8-ply, but this one is 100% alpaca. And I am going to be knitting a Sophie shawl with this. I know, the most basic possible project to knit this into, but I don't have hand knit staples accessories. I wanted to learn to knit to make garments, so I dove straight into making like cabled cardigan. So as a knitter, I really want to have some of my own hand knit winter accessories. So I got this beautiful alpaca yarn in effort to make myself a simple Sophie shawl that I can bundle up in the winter time. I feel like everyone in the knitting community has one of those, and I need one too. Of course, there are other scarf options that are more unique, not so basic. One I had my eye on was the Barbara shawl. It's so beautiful. And there's also the coral reef scarf, which I think is so gorgeous. And there's also the Woodlark scarf by Knit. They are all such beautiful options, and as much as I would like to do something more interesting and unique, I really look forward to just having a very simple garter stitch squishy scarf. So I wanted to mention all of those patterns so that if you want something more unique, you can take inspiration from some of those. And I also highly recommend, if you have the Rabbit app, which is like an app version of Ravelry. I don't think they're affiliated, but it's like a third-party app that I use to be able to peruse Ravelry way too often. If you go to a pattern that you like, you can scroll down and it not only shows the designer's other patterns, but it shows like patterns like these, and it can help you get inspiration for finding other scarves that are more your style or more unique. I'll try to show on the screen what I am talking about so that you can try that out for yourself. But I am very, very excited to make my Sophie shawl out of this yarn, and I think it will look so good on me in the winter and keep me nice and cozy. The last Bendigo yarn I have to show is this 8-ply cotton in the color Chestnut. I got this from the discount second spin, and it is marked discounted because there are some white marks throughout, just some inconsistencies in their manufacturing that they just didn't want to sell at full price because of that. And I ended up spending $10 on these 2 balls, which is 400 grams. And my plan for this is to make my poet tee. I talked about this one in my Make 9 as one of the teas I would love to get to at the end of this year when we are going into spring later. I think when you're going into fall, I'll be going into spring if you are in the northern hemisphere. It is an all over lacework tee, and I think it would be so beautiful in this color. It's like a nice, it's a deeper rose tone, and I honestly am in disbelief that I got 400 grams of cotton for only $10. They had a lot of that cotton in the discounted bin, and I feel like I could have gotten so much more, but I already had so much in my bag that I was trying to reel myself in, if you can believe that this insane haul was me reeling myself in, because I wanted to throw up when she told me my total at the end. But as my husband and I always like to remind ourselves as we're walking out, as Americans in Australia, the American dollar is stronger. So when we've just spent, say, $200 on yarn, we walk out of the store and my husband was like, well, at least that was only like 125 US dollars. So that is how we girl math our way into splurging on our hobbies. Jokes aside, I do think it is really, really valuable to discuss like overconsumption in the yarn community, while also normalizing that it's very important to invest in our hobbies, and what that looks like for each individual is different. And if your yarn stash overwhelms you, work it down. If you love buying new yarns and getting new inspiration from that, do that. And what works for me is going to be different now that I am making videos about knitting than what it may look like for you. And that's okay. Like, we're all on different journeys, and I don't ever want anyone to compare their yarn stash to mine and think that they should have this much yarn or that I shouldn't buy this much yarn. Again, we're just all on different journeys, and I love sharing mine with you, but it's important to not compare and contrast what someone else is doing from what you're doing, as long as we are all knitting in a way that brings us joy. And with that, that concludes the Bendigo yarn haul, but I do have some yarns I've wanted to show you that I have gotten from Knitpicks that I have some really exciting plans for. Let's talk about 2 woodland sweater quantities. Woodland is a heavy worsted or Aran weight, 80% merino wool, 20% baby alpaca yarn, and this is the color Box Turtle Heather. The color is like a greeny yellow, and I think it would be perfect for the Beatrix cardigan by Gregoria Fibers. That pattern has been literally living in my mind rent-free. Literally since I put out my Make 9, I knew that this one was going to get added to it because I started seeing it on some of my favorite podcasts, and I just couldn't stop thinking about it. So I knew it was going to get added. I've been watching Knitting Jungle, and I think she knit this in like 3 weeks, and good on her. The Beatrix cardigan is an all over textured knit. It is a saddle shoulder construction that has a cable going down the arm, and it is just a beautiful design. Like, it's such a statement piece while also looking like a very classic wardrobe item. The pattern is meant to be knit with an Aran weight yarn, so I think that this heavy worsted or Aran weight will work really well. I got 600 grams of this. I'm planning on knitting the size 3, and Knitting Jungle said she used like 5.5, so I should have more than enough. And as we know, I'm so afraid of yarn chicken at this point. One thing I really like about this design is that it has a very unique button band, and it has a really cool button closure, and so I'm looking forward to trying that out. Oh, aka Nora Knits is the other person that I've watched the journey of knitting this, and hers is so beautiful too. So I really can't wait to have one of these of my own. I think this is such a fun color. I'm really proud of myself this year for getting out of my neutral palette box I had put myself in. As much as I love knitting with neutrals, like I can't wait to knit with this. I love having some fun colors splashed in there, especially because I think knitwear make for such staple pieces of your wardrobe that are also statements. So having some statement colors that you can form the rest of your outfits around is really exciting. I did catch these yarns on a woodland sale they were doing. I think I got 20 or 25% off. So I feel like I got a really good deal, and I can't wait to knit with this fiber. It has a really cool fiber content that I think is going to make for such a soft, luxurious garment. I'm obsessed and in my alpaca era. And then the other woodland yarn I got is the Japanese maple heather colorway, and I am so in love with this color as well. My plan for this one is to knit the sweater number 29 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. This one is also a saddle shoulder with all over cables, and I think it would be so gorgeous in this color. It's meant to be quite an oversized loose fit one, just like the Beatrix. So I think that they're both really perfect with this woodland yarn. I think that the drape this yarn will offer look really good in this pattern. However, this pattern calls for worsted, so I'm gonna have to make sure I can meet gauge with this Aran yarn because it's like a heavy worsted. But it shouldn't be a problem, and I think it'll be so beautiful. Again, I bought 600 grams of this one. I think that this yarn and project combo will be so lovely, and I am just so excited for everything on my queue this year and all of my new yarns. I feel like as I've added some things onto my queue, I am mentally adjusting my make 9 a little bit. I do think that this sweater number 29 is going to replace the jacket number 2, because they are quite similar designs, and I think I'm leaning more towards wanting the sweater version. Shocking, I know. We all know I love a cabled cardigan, but I'm really excited to also have this style of sweater. I think it reminds me of my August sweater in many ways, but with a different construction. And we know I love my August sweater, so it'll be a really nice addition to my sweater cloth wardrobe. We did go to the store and grab some new tubs for me to organize all my yarn into, and I feel so much better about it. I think as knitters, it's a fine line to toe of not wanting to have so much yarn that you feel like you can't knit fast enough, and wanting to have enough yarn that you're inspired to pick up your next projects and finish the ones you have going. I'm not sure if I've shown these on the channel already, but when I ordered my caramel sweater yarn back right after Christmas at the end of 2024, I had also ordered Berroco's Vintage DK in the color dark denim. I showed it in that vlog, but as I am just tying up the loose ends on my caramel sweater vlog, I realized that I don't think you guys have seen this yet because I haven't shared that vlog yet. It's a whole project vlog start to finish, so obviously I have to finish the caramel sweater to share that footage. But I got this yarn to knit my husband some winter accessories, hat, gloves, and scarf. So I got 5 hanks of this. It is a DK weight and it is 40% wool, 52% acrylic, 8% nylon. So it is a synthetic and wool blend, but I think that that will allow it to hold up, stand the test of time, and also be a quality garment. I love this color and he does too. As you can see, I'm also knitting the Lakes pullover in a similar color to this, and I think it will look really good on him. As far as what patterns I'm going to be doing, he selected the fading loop scarf by, I think, Other Loops. The fading loop scarf is a fluffy brioche stitch color changing scarf, but I'm going to be knitting it all in this color. I'm not going to be holding it with any mohairs to change colors throughout. It's a really awesome, unique pattern, and I think it would be neat to knit it in that way sometime down the road, maybe for myself. But he just really liked the way the brioche stitch looked, as well as the tassels. So when he was looking through my scarf bundle on Ravelry, that is the one he picked, and that is what the scarf will be for this set. And then as far as mitts go, I think I'm gonna do a pair of fingerless gloves so that he can still like use his phone but keep his hands warm while he's driving to work on winter days. And then the hat I'm planning to knit for him is the weekend hat by petiteknit. He really likes the ribbed look of that one, and I think a ribbed hat will be easier to, it's more forgiving to get the sizing with a ribbed hat because it can stretch or it can kind of squeeze to the head. So those are the plans for my husband's winter accessories. But that is all the yarn I have to share with you today. I hope you took away a lot of inspiration from this video, and there's just so many fun things to knit, and I can't wait to get to them all and share that journey with you guys on here. And I can't wait to hear what you're most excited about on your queue coming up. We are nearing 10,000 subscribers, which is literally so insane. I still feel like I'm at like 2,000 or 3,000 because those all happened so quickly that like my brain stopped processing. And I'm so thankful for every one of you that are here and watch my videos and support me. It can't be understated how much it means that I can just like share the thing that I love with you guys that you also really love and find comfort in. 10,000 is literally not a milestone I ever imagined myself like hitting, and to think that I really only started consistently making my videos about a year ago now is crazy. This month it'll be exactly a year since we were selling our house, moving abroad, and I was making that video of knitting my husband a hat over the weekend that he was putting our stuff in storage. So since then, we have literally moved across the globe, and I've started consistently making these videos to have a sense of community while living in another country. So I can't express to you how much this has brought me, and I want to thank you for being here, and I hope that my videos also bring you a sense of comfort. I hope to see some of you at the Australian Yarn Show this weekend. If you are not already subscribed, make sure you tap subscribe so you don't miss future cozy videos. Don't forget to make time for the things that fill your cup and help you unravel your mind, and I will be wishing you a very cozy week.